He's aggravating, he's annoying, I'm Frost, and this is Tools of the Trade. The passive, every time Kuzenbo takes a certain amount of damage, he gains a stack of damage mitigation. These last a few seconds, and every time he gets a new one, it refreshes the effect. If you get hit with hard crowd control, you lose half of the stacks you've accumulated. What does this mean though? Well, essentially, if you are in a long, drawn-out fight and you are not getting disrupted by crowd control, you are getting tankier. First ability, he throws a shell. It can bounce off of walls, it can hit non-god enemies multiple times, it goes through non-god enemies, and once the shell gets to max range or it hits an enemy god, a child pops out and they're stuck babysitting for free. It also slows. Now, because it can bounce off walls multiple times and go through non-enemy gods multiple times, you're actually pretty good at farming with this. This early game is very annoying, having that slow, having that extra body to block damage and to block movement. For towers and minions, if you throw this thing out first, it's going to draw the aggression into it first. Your second ability reflects a percentage of the damage that you take, and if it's off cooldown, there is no one that can stop you from using this ability, no kind of crowd control, unless you are dead essentially. So use your 1, use your 3, antagonize the enemy, pop your 2, make him hit you, and then use your 1 and your 3 again on discounted cooldown. Third ability, he is immune to slows and charges forward. He can go through all enemies, but the first god he grabs is silenced and pushed through. The enemy god you are pushing takes more damage as he gets pushed through other enemies, and if you hit a wall, that's more damage. But get into their heads, make them use their escape. If you don't get them, somebody else will. And if nobody gets them, they're not going in until their escape's back up again. In the ultimate, you get faster, you get crowd control immune, you can move freely in every direction, and you knock back enemies over and over and over again. As far as supports go, there are other Guardians that are more well-rounded than this turtle here. Defense-wise, he's somewhat lacking in the peel department and in terms of sustain as well. There's just better supports that could be protecting you. But despite his weaknesses, his strengths do make him stand out. He is a bully to ADCs and a nightmare for burst mages. Not so much assassins, they tend to be too mobile and work with pure penetration items. You want to punish hunters for going crit. You want to punish mages for going glass cannon. All damage, no defense. Against other tanky characters, you don't fare too poorly. You bring an extra body to the table with your 1, the displacement you offer with your 3 and your 4, it helps you keep up. But just because of how annoying you can be with your reflect on hunters and on mages, you're going to affect how they play, and simply by your presence is going to help out your team. A hunter's not going to want to build crit, and if they do, they're not going to be aiming at you. Your hunter's going to be able to get crit, which means they can box their hunter better. A mage will most likely invest in a defensive item, or at the very least, rethink about using that big burst ultimate. Effectively, you've decreased the amount of damage that's being put onto your team overall by the enemy. So before you hit that select button, you are going to have to put in some thought, or you are going to have one hell of a match. You don't want to pick him first. He's better at punishing characters that have already been locked in. Those would be the high burst AoE characters, the characters that excel with crit, and the immobile characters. Those things, and take a look at your own team. If you already have a decent amount of peel and sustain, then Kuzen is a pretty good addition to the team. This is why sometimes he is chosen in the solo role instead of the traditional Guardian equals support style. Or perhaps their team is very bursty, your team is very bursty, and by having you in the midst of it all, the enemy is not able to retaliate with full force without fear of killing themselves. Meanwhile, your team can go all out. But that's another issue in itself, is identifying when the meta properly suits him. His quote-unquote sustain or value that he gets from his protections come from getting hit. So after one fight, you're probably not going to be able to withstand another. Then if you happen to be in more of a tank meta, he doesn't offer enough peel or sustain for the rest of the team. So because he lacks that well-rounded nature of most supports, it doesn't mean he's useless. He's not going to be picked all the time, and it's up to you to figure out when he is most effective. Part of the skill and fun in Smite is knowing when to pick which character, and to figure that out, you gotta get out there and practice. So go, practice, and become the god you were meant to be.